An NRA TV host lost it after reading a tweet sent from a fake Bernie Sanders Twitter account. Watch.
You know you have gone off the liberal deep end when even the entertainer Cher criticizes insane policies like allowing terrorists and sex offenders to vote from behind bars. Bernie Sanders loves the idea. The socialist self-aggrandizer simply wants votes. Cher thinks the idea is ludicrous. Bernie bots attack her on social media. The very liberal Cher restores what little faith I have left in those on the left when she responded like this. Terrorists killed innocent people. I'm sick of being nailed to the cross because you people think I'm a racist. I'm not going to defend myself. Care for all people. Try to help all people, Cher said. Excuse the out of me if I don't want murderers, rapists, child molesters of every color to vote. You hear that? Of every color. It's not a black or white thing. It's a right or wrong thing. Terrorists voting? Give me a break, Bernie Sanders. The fact is, it may be one of Bernie Sanders' responses to Cher that is the most offensive. Who cares about a few terrorists, he writes. Who cares about a few terrorists? I would argue the family members of hundreds of victims of the Boston bombings. That's who. All of us who lived through 9/11, who knew people who died there and felt it firsthand, what jihad means and what it is, death to America. We care, Bernie Sanders and your supporters. We care about terrorists not voting from behind bars. The 5.5 million members of the NRA care because we love this country. And no, we don't think people who denounce everything America stands for should get a say in where it's headed.
Wow. You realize that tweet was fake, bro, right? Like, really? You didn't know that that was fake? Okay, I guess let's kind of start with the beginning, right? So he's like, look at Cher. I'm actually going to quote it, and I'm actually going to agree with her because Bernie Sanders has jumped off the liberal deep end. For one, Cher is terrible. So I'm sorry, Cher fans. You follow her Twitter account. She's 100% establishment and the epitome of bourgeois liberal. And so not interested in Cher. But anyway, so no, she argued, well, how dare people, you give people in jail the right to vote. I mean, we should take away every one of their rights because everyone in prison is naturally a child rapist, pedophile, murderer, etc. No, you actually look at the numbers of people in prison. They're from one, disproportionately African American and also disproportionately nonviolent offenders. So, hey, you ever wonder why people were saying that you were racist? Or that you have a racist take on this issue? It's because you weren't arguing on the facts. But anyway, you want to argue the merits about people voting from prison? Okay, well, all right, let's do that, right? So now, for one, let's just get something simple out of the way. Terrorists, foreign terrorists, like the people in 9/11, could never vote in the first place. You know why? They're not American citizens. Now, domestic terrorists, that's something different, and let's be fair about that. The Boston bomber, for example, the guy that's being touted as the face of Bernie Sanders' new proposal to allow people in prison to vote, yeah, I guess he could. Now, but the thing is, the reaction to it, right, is everybody thinks, yeah, but he's going to vote himself out of prison. No, that's not a thing. That's absolutely absurd. No, what is the harm in it? And it's not like it's going to matter anyway. Look, saying that you're worried about him voting is basically admitting that you think democracy doesn't work. You have no faith in democracy, or you believe that, or you actually don't believe in democracy. Now, there's a couple of mindsets here, right? Number one is prison is a punishment where you give up every single one of your rights and liberties when you're locked away. Now, to me, that seems rather absurd, right? No, I think that, yes, there are certain rights that you give up when you, become a criminal, basically, and you get locked away. The main one is your liberty to go and do whatever you want. Now, that doesn't eliminate all your rights. You still have a First Amendment right to, for example, your freedom of religion, right? So what's so wrong about people being able to cast an absentee ballot when you're in prison? That is one of your rights. It doesn't hurt anyone that they still have that right. So I don't quite understand. Oh, but you don't understand, Jeff. Terrible people are going to vote. And terrible people already vote. And not only that, but there are terrible people that are in politics. You know that we have presidents who are literal war criminals. Look at Dick Cheney. Look at Henry Kissinger. Those are two incredibly terrible people that I can guarantee have killed more people than I think some of the worst murderers in prison, right? I mean, sure, they didn't go there and do it, themselves. They didn't pull the trigger, but it sure was on their orders. The invasion of Iraq, for example, killed millions of innocent Iraqis. They can vote. They held office. And right now, a lot of them are still sitting pretty somewhere else, vacation. But look, that's not even my argument, right? No, my argument is, what about the millions of people that are in prison for nonviolent offenses? Things like possession of marijuana, for example. Those people are disproportionately black. And by the way, they're counted on the census. So they're counted on the census, yet they are blocked from being able to vote. They cannot exercise their vote. So those people, they don't have a voice. And I think that's the whole point. The whole point in being against this is, I don't want those black people voting. And there are liberals like Cher that are basically have bought into the right-wing propaganda spewed by this guy. People like this. And the whole purpose is to get them all riled up to think, oh, it's terrorists, it's bad people voting. Therefore, we shouldn't let anybody vote that is in prison. No, that's a ridiculous, position, and one that is purely based on emotion. It is an appeal to emotion, and all the liberals that have fallen for it, you have fallen for that emotional trap. And that's what the Republicans do. It's a trap, right? Those people, they do not have a voice. And it was by design. They want to keep black and brown people disenfranchised, which ends up being voter suppression, which unfortunately we do really, really well here in America. We make sure that as few people vote as possible, when we should make sure that more people, as many people vote as possible. So what they do is that they do that appeal from emotion by pointing out the worst of the worst, the rapists, the terrorists, the murderers, right? And then use that as an excuse to try to continue the disenfranchisement of large majorities of black people. And so they're going to get people like Cher on their side, in the side against justice, when we should all be for justice. Prison should be about rehabilitation, reintegration into society instead of just punishment. And I realize that sometimes that's impossible, right? There are in some cases that you'll never be able to rehabilitate some people. But I think there should be the goal, the overall goal, instead of the punishment model that we have today. And so we need massive criminal justice reform. Now, as for Stinchfield, again, I want to show you where he messed up, right? Well, he messed up on a lot of things, but this is the biggest one. When he went on to claim that Bernie Sanders himself had said this, why are you playing into this? Who cares about a few terrorists? What, you notice something? That's not Bernie Sanders' Twitter account. I know, I followed the Twitter account. This is literally a random person, a Twitter rando that he's quoting as Bernie Sanders. That's ridiculous. Completely 100% false, fake news. But his whole show, to be fair, is all about spreading fake news. On Election Day 2016, by the way, as an example of this, Stinchfield read from and discussed an article in the NRA magazine about the horrors of a Hillary Clinton presidency, right? Which, look, a Hillary Clinton presidency would have brought literally no change. Now, the article, which raised the prospect of Syrian refugees establishing an Islamic State in the United States, culminating in a nuclear attack on a U.S. soil. This is what he shared and called truth, right? Oh my God, that's going to happen. They're going to create an Islamic State, and then they're going to nuke the United States from inside, from Oklahoma. No, Of course not. That's ridiculous. There is no Islamic group that's going to go and create Sharia law in the middle of Oklahoma and then nuke us from inside. That's the kind of fake news this guy spreads. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, and a complete and utter fabrication. As usual, the right has nothing, no policy, nothing to help regular Americans, so they resort to fear-mongering, lying, and making things up. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.